marijuana. I was thinking about this when we were talking about alcohol. Sorry for everyone that wanted the vape question. You're gonna have to wait. I was thinking about that. We have the two drugs that were commonly pushed by a bunch of companies and very legal for 18 and now 21 for everything: tobacco and or nicotine and alcohol. Directly cause health effects. Directly cause death. Doesn't have to be cancer, but they directly cause death and unhealthy lifestyles. And marijuana, which is a more timid drug, it causes probably less deaths than alcohol does, not related to.
Yeah, definitely for sure.
Yeah, like people are eating. Maybe their eating habits aren't the greatest, but
Yeah.
that could be for society's problems, making McDonald's
Like
and
pure
stuff.
death, it's like really hard to OD on like
Marijuana.
THC.
Yeah, and also you're not
Yeah,
going to get
it's
up and
really hard.
you don't want to go drive somewhere when you're high. You're like, oh, do I really got to do that right now? Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah. I
When
will
you're
say this though. I definitely think I'm not a, marijuana use, whatever floats your boat, as long as, you're not hurting people,
Mhm.
in my personal opinion. I think it's bullshit that it's illegal and alcohol is legal. Like, alcohol kills like thousands of Americans, if not millions of Americans, and definitely influences death because people are driving with DUIs and killing other people and themselves. So like the fact that that shit's legal and that marijuana isn't legal doesn't make any sense to me. But just from a health perspective, we know a few things about marijuana use. Marijuana use in adolescence, people who's, teenagers, brains are still figuring out, they're still maturing, all that shit. There's a ton of literature and studies looking at this, and cognitive function and memory will decline if people are introduced to marijuana earlier in age. That makes sense. There's a psychedelic effect. These drugs work on receptors in your brain. That makes a ton of sense. Kids should not be smoking marijuana. Fair enough. But for adults, at least from a cancer biology perspective, I haven't come across any data that looks at that. But also too, because it's been illegal, it's really hard to get accurate, large
Yeah.
assessments of it, because even gauging marijuana use is really hard because, again, we're like using survey data, which is like the weakest form of large scale data
Yeah.
approaches, because like people can just lie.
Somebody should just smoke
uh,
Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa and track their
yeah,
life.
right. See, yeah, but you got like the old lady that smokes 10 packs of cigarettes a day and then like gets hit by a car and like doesn't have lung cancer. That shit happens all the time. So yeah, the marijuana thing is like, and also too, on the flip side, marijuana definitely doesn't cure cancer. I have had that debate a lot.
I didn't think it
um
cured cancer, but I will say this. Why do you two questions. Why doesn't the smoke, if you know, cause cancer in the lungs? Because you would think smoke and anything, like people got lung cancer from Vietnam and the gases there. Toxins into the lungs usually has
yeah,
a
but it's what's in the
direct.
gas that matters.
But why do you think, or if you know, why does marijuana smoke not cause cancer?
Yeah, I don't think there's a few things. I think as like, so marijuana is getting legalized, and I think in like 2 decades we'll really know if there's an increase risk as things get regulated, and then like use gets easier to like acknowledge from like a study perspective. um and then it won't be illegal. So like even doing studies with marijuana is like extremely difficult, because for all intents and purposes it's still a controlled substance by the federal government, and that just creates a huge barrier to do any studies with it. But like you can start like a smoking cessation study like no problem at your university. So studying these things is difficult in that part. But I just think that the small molecules, the chemistry that's in marijuana, the THC and all that stuff, just doesn't have a carcinogenic effect, unlike the things that are in tobacco that do have a carcinogenic effect. And the smoking stuff, now smoking does stuff to the esophagus and the lungs. It causes the cilia to paralyze and all different types of physiological effects, but does it cause tissue damage and mutations? Because ultimately that's what you need to get cancer. You need something that's going to generate mutations in a cell. For whatever reason, well, not for whatever reason, but the chemistry that's there. And again, too, I don't know how many hundreds of molecules are in marijuana. We know what's in cigarettes because they're highly regulated. And so we know that these compounds are carcinogens because we study it because it's highly regulated. We don't really know all of the things that are in marijuana. Probably have cataloged a lot of those molecules because people are studying all of the molecules inside of marijuana. But at least the data thus far, it doesn't seem like there's any increased cancer risk thus far.
Well, marijuana too, it helps cancer patients with hunger, right? Or with eating, correct?
Yeah, and some, yeah. I mean, there's also some. Hey, listen, if I was a physician and if I was going to give a patient opiates versus having them smoke a joint, I would say, hey, listen, try smoking a joint and see if you feel better. You know, does that help control your pain? And if it helped control their pain, I'd rather give them that than give them opiates,
Yeah, one
which
thing
we
that